Well, good morning, everyone. It's Ed from EAPQs. I hope you can see this video okay. I'm going to sit here and talk to you today about installing joint pins. My preferred joint pin is a 3/8-10. Some people like radial, some people like stainless, some people like G10, some people like 3/8, 11s. It's your preference, whatever you want to go with. Do what you're comfortable with. I like the 3/8-10. I like the way they lock in. I don't want to say play. I think playability is way overrated on a pin. I think it's more your material that you're using against the joint, but we'll get into that at another time. What I'm going to try to do today is do two joint pins if I have time. I may have to make video 1 and video 2. For those of you that know me, I have a young daughter, so when she gets up, she knows to come into the shop here with Dad and get our day started. Not sure what time she'll be up. But when she does, I probably will end the video or very shortly after that, so she has my attention. But anyway, so setting joint pins has been a discussion in the Q Builders group for quite a while, and a little bit about myself, I guess, is I started messing around with pool cues around 2014. Started building in 2015, probably produced my first one in 16, 17 time frame. So, and I've produced multiple since then. By far, I'm not an expert. I think I've done very well in the amount of time that I've been doing this. I did a lot of reading, a lot of research on my own. So how I do my methods is kind of the way I self-taught myself, not saying they're the best, not saying that you can't do things differently, and that's not what this channel is about at all. Please understand, this is just what myself and Chris are doing, how we do things. There's multiple ways, and probably one of the biggest differences is when I set my joint pin versus other people, okay? But for today, I'm going to try to do two methods, okay? One is not under power per se or live threading. It's the conventional way of using a tap and your tailstock and so forth, because that's what a lot of you guys are up against, and maybe gals are up against out there, is you don't live thread. So you're wondering how to really get this joint pin in and get it straight and so forth. We always look for perfect accuracy when we do these things, but there's some variables, okay? Some of the mistakes is you're getting your joint thread in your shaft a little bit too tight. You don't want them super tight because, folks, this is helical, okay? It's not straight, it's helical. So when a nut is pulling down, it's actually slightly getting offset when they actually pull down, believe it or not, okay? What makes a shaft straight is not this being out 2 thousandths or 1 thousandths is not going to hurt anything. It's the faces between the Q, the lower half of the Q, and the face of the shaft. That's what's really important. That's where you get, run out or crooked shaft or so forth. So, yes, dead on is great. We all want that. That's what we all try to get. But at the end, if you're 1/1000ths or 1/1000ths a half out, don't lose sleep over it. You'll be okay if you get those faces correct, and that's what's really important. But by no means am I saying don't try to get perfect accuracy, okay? But we're also working with wood, and we have some variables and temperatures and everything else. So what do I have here? I have a 3/8-10 HO tap, and this is HO, and the HO stands for it's a 3/8-10. HO2 means it's 2 thousandths over, okay? I'm doing the HO because when you do these, your set thread here is actually smaller than your joint thread, okay? If you ever mic these things, okay? So you can get by with an HO tap, and it works just fine. It keeps everything a little bit tighter. I will be showing you how I drill these today, and I will be showing you how I bore these today, okay? And it's very important that your drilling operation is really accurate, okay? And if you can't drill straight, you need to figure that out, okay? Some of it is the type of bits that you're using, all right? Or, make sure you're using high quality bits. Don't be using jobber bits. Those are the longer bits. I'll show you that here in just a moment. Matter of fact, let me grab a couple here. Just give me a second.
always seems like you can't find what you're looking for.
Okay. Jobber drill bit is what they call a jobber, regular length, okay? The problem with these, you're gonna get flex out of them. And if you're not going in perfectly straight, you're gonna see this thing moving a little bit. It starts getting you off, okay? Don't use these. It's okay to use them as a follow-up bit, and you'll need to at times, you know, when the shorter bits are not long enough, but at that point you already have a hole established. Now, stubby bits, okay? I get my bits, I think, through Drill Hog. Grueling is another one. They're made out of Germany, very good stuff. I get these, they're good. They're what I call a stubby. If you look at the length of them, you have a lot less room to flex. And then yet, even better, all carbide, okay? These are Klot, K-L-O-T. They come from overseas. I order them on eBay. You can get various sizes. This is a little bit under a 5/16, which is what I want at times. And you see they're even a little shorter yet. But they're very rigid because they are carbide. So they do a really, really good job. They're good and sharp when you get them. You know, you can have them resharpened if you want to at some point. But that's what I use a lot of. Again, eBay, K-L-O-T. I don't know if I'll add a link or not, but I think you should be able to find them, and they work really well. So with all this said, what I'm going to try to do is reposition the camera and get started showing you how I would do it, what I call the conventional method, with just a tap handle, my tailstock, and going from there. So, and then after that, if we have time, I actually have a cue that I'm in the process of making right now. This is for a customer, and it will be getting the 3H10 G10 pin in it, okay? So, my first one is going to be like I said, the original method, you know, the tap, the handle, the tap, and the tailstock. And then I will do this one under live threading, because that's just how I do all my stuff. I live thread everything, okay? I tap very little. There are a few things that I tap because it's just quicker, but we'll save those for another time. But we will actually set this pin. This cue is basically finished. Now, you know, this is one of the things you're going to run into. So a lot of cue makers set their pins ahead of time and build the cue to the pin, and that's great. I mean, a lot of them do it. I probably do it a little differently, or maybe backwards to some. But this cue is basically finished. It's a few thousandths oversized. I will set my pin, and then I will finish sanding after my pin is set and my shaft is done, and I match everything up. And this way they come out perfect for me. I also have sanding manuals if I want to use them, but I generally don't have to at this point, but I do have them. It's just how I taught myself. And again, like I said early on, I taught myself a lot of this stuff. I didn't have a mentor, you know. I didn't have anybody I was going to. I bought videos from Behringer, and I seen how he was doing things, and I seen a few things on the internet. I have a background in machinery. You know, I've had this lathe that you're going to see here for, shoot, 17, almost 18 years. It's a 2006 model. I got it, you know, right after it was built. It's an old Birmingham lathe. It's really accurate. It's, you know, certainly not a Matthews or a Clausing or one of those, but it's really accurate. It's served me well so far. But I've had milling machines, you know, for years and years. I had a lot of this stuff before I ever even ventured into cue building. So, you know, I was versed with it. I knew what I was doing to some degree. But again, you know, I made a lot of chips, you know, as some people, as a lot of us refer to out there when people are asking, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? Make chips. That's the best thing I can tell you. Learn from your mistakes. You watch some videos. It's not rocket science, but try to make some chips, okay? You're going to find what works for me, works for Chris, works for other builders. May not necessarily work for you. It may get you a foundation, and then you're going to tweak your things, okay? So that's the big thing, is make some chips, try it. You're gonna mess up. I've messed up a couple cues so far. You know, I messed up one really nice cue and trashed it out and had to rebuild it. You know, it's just something doesn't come out perfect, you throw it away and you start over. There's going to be a loss in the business. You know, we lose 10% of our wood. You have to expect to lose a cue along the line or two. Biggest thing is take your time, don't get distracted, and that definitely helps out. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause this. Hang this back up here. It's not where I normally hang it. All my stuff is normally hung up over there. Hopefully you can see it in the rack. All right, we're back. As I said, we were just talking about some of the wood, how I store it, where it's at. It's over in the rack. But for today, we want to try to concentrate on setting a pin. Again, this is just a scrap piece of wood. I'm hoping you guys can really see this. I'm not too close. I'm not too far away. I think that I'm going to pause and maybe just try to back you guys up just a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. Gives you a little bit more area of my workspace. You know, you can see my tailstock here. You should be able to see that. All right, just a scrap piece of wood, nothing special. I don't even know how accurate it is, but I'll show you how I would normally always do everything. Once I have my material in here, I'm always going to indicate it, especially when I'm setting a pin, okay? And let me get a paper towel. Actually, I took some time yesterday and tried to clean up this machine a little bit, so it was pretty dirty. I gotta admit, it was pretty dirty. But as I said, I'm always going to try to indicate things, is what I want to do. So now, I do not expect this to indicate out correctly because it's a piece of wood. I've never trued it, I've never done anything to it, but I'm going to show you. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Yeah. I bring my indicator up, I bring it to wherever I want to. In this case, I'll bring it to 0. And then what I would do is, you know, I do everything. I'm going to see how well this, wow. I'm very surprised. I'm getting less than about 1,000's run out on this, which, you know, isn't bad for just, I mean, it's a piece of raw wood. So that's pretty good. Now, if I were to be putting my cue in here, I would be doing the same thing. I use collets. I have different collets that I've made up for, you know, different items. I'd be putting a collet on there, and then I would be indicating it. And if I have to, I'm going to turn it. I'm going to do what I need to, and then I'm going to shim it. Okay, because what I want to try to do is get it as close to 0 run out as possible. Okay, this way, if I know I'm in the center, I'm in the center. I stay in the center the entire time. But again, this is pretty good. Like I said, I'm within about 1,000's run out here, so I can live with that for what we're doing today. So that's my basic way of indicating something. Now, set this out of the way. All right. I do a lot of this stuff at about 600 RPM. That's what works well for me, 600 to 800. I would come in here and back up where you can see this, and you know, this is my starter bit. This is actually carbide. I use all carbide of these as well. They don't flex, they don't bend. They're good. You're drilling into wood. You should hardly ever have to have one of these sharpened. As a matter of fact, just throw it in the garbage or turn it around. There's 2 ends of these things, and go buy another one for under 20 bucks. Okay, it's worthwhile. But I do these just to get everything started. Now, this is a 5/16. I'll be drilling a 5/16 hole eventually, or close to it, just slightly under it with my cloth bit. And let me go ahead and get this one started, and then we'll go from there. Everything's going to be a little noisy. I'm not going to try to shut off the camera too much if I can help it. This way you can hopefully see everything that I'm doing. If I put my glasses on, maybe I can see a little better here.
Now, one of the things you'll notice is when I drilled with this, I actually drilled in a little bit. Okay, if all I'm doing is giving myself a center hole for turning between centers, then I just come up to the haunch right here. But when I'm actually starting a pilot hole for setting a pin, I bring this down a little bit because this is a 5/16 also. It's going to give you something more to follow. And this is very accurate because they're so short, they're so rigid. So keep that in mind when you do those. Now, yeah, I have different chucks for everything. You know, okay, I have that. I have, you know, live centers. I have a chuck set up, you know, specifically for tapping when I need it. I have, you know, another one set up right here for when I'm tapering for butt caps and stuff like that, or the rubber bumpers rather. I mean, I just have everything. I don't like to change out bits too often. This is the one I change out bits on the most, and it's okay. It works for me well. So, you know, here's one of the things we got to think about right here is depth. Now, this is a little different for me because normally I'm live threading. I know my exact depth I'm going to be at, and here it's a little bit different for me. But I'm going to be comfortable with where I'm at. Again, it's just an example. When you do these, you don't want to have to go any deeper than you need to get your threads in. And remember, you don't want this face right here sticking out. You want to get up, you know, just about a thread so that when we get done and we actually cut our chamfer in here, all right, you don't see this barrel at all. All right, you just see your very first thread sticking up. Now, again, I had to go a little bit deeper in this case. I may still have to go a little bit deeper before it's all over with, simply because, let me see something here. Yeah, I think I'll be okay. Simply because I'm not live threading in this case. So let's drill this out. Now, what do we do when we drill? We just ram it on in there, right? No, you take your time. That's where you get vibration, is if you start pushing too hard. Learn to feel these things out a little bit, okay? Now, one of the other things is, normally I wouldn't have my material sticking out this far. I just threw this in here. I try to work as close to to my chuck here as possible, okay? So technically, I should have backed this up. Probably didn't start that off right with you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm just going to slide it on back. I might be out, but I mean, you really, when you're doing this, and here's the thing, if you have this in a collet and it's sticking way out, build another collet. It's just that simple. You're a cue builder now, okay? You need to learn to build some things, all right? And some of it is collets. I mean, these collets here, they were all built by myself. I do have a lot of the standard collets you buy when you're, you know, doing tips and stuff, and that's great, you know, but there's a lot of specialty collets that you need as well. And you just have to build them yourself. I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. And they should be tapered on the inside and straight on the outside. This way they fit the taper of your cue. And this way when you put them on, they lock in place. We'll go over that here in just a little bit as well. So, all right, let's get started and try to see if we can get this one drilled out. Again, take your time. How well you can see this. I'll try to keep my hand underneath it. You'll see that drill bit is not moving, okay? I don't have any wobble. I don't feel anything. I'm not feeling the vibration in the chuck, okay? And that's really important. I'm going in and out. I'm letting the material extract itself. If I get to a point where I don't see that material extracting itself, I'm going to pull everything out. Like right now. I could feel it was starting to bind up a little bit. All right, see this material building up right here? It was starting to build up. That's going to cause you problems if you don't. Now, keep a little air handy. All right, we want to do that. Keep a little bit of air handy. Come back in. All right, don't let your chuck start running way out. Bring it back in, come into it, lock yourself in place, and continue drilling. Don't have your chuck sticking out there, you know, 3.5, 4 inches. There's no need for it. I'm even a little further here than what I normally am. Again, I'm out of my normal routine of what I do. Now, I'm up to the point where I don't have any relief cut in this drill bit, okay? I'm up past into the shank area, so now I need to definitely make sure I'm working my way in and out a lot. I don't want to feel it binding. If it's binding, then I'm starting to mess up my hole. Go in, come out, clean it out. Go in. All right. We were successful. I don't think anybody can say you've seen any movement in this chuck at all. Because if you do see it, then that means your hole is not straight. And that's what's really important. Again, taking these, taking your time with them, getting things started straight, using the correct drill bits. It's not that difficult. And if you can't do what I just did right there, you need to back up and think about the process that you're doing, okay? It really is that simple. I'm just gonna knock this dirt down here, my chips. I'll vacuum it all up later. I don't wanna start vacuuming it up now. It just gets too noisy for everybody. So, all right. Now, let me see. We have a little run out in the face, but we can fix that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and fix that right now. I would have normally already done this on a cube. My face is the first thing I do. Cleaned up everything so good yesterday, I can't find anything. All right. So I now have my face where I want it. So, what are you going to do? You're going to, let's see here. You got to measure this pin. Let me get my, you're going to, let's see where I'm at. All right, let me zoom back out just a little bit here so you have more room to see me, what I'm doing. Sorry. Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to measure this pin, right? All right, so where are we at with this pin? 381 thousandths. I think this was one of the other pins. Let me look for a different pin for a second. Just a second. All right, the reason I got a different pin is this pin has a glue relief in it. The other one were spirals, and I don't like them as much. Eventually, I'll take them and I'll take them and I'll put them on my CNC machine and probably cut some better glue reliefs in them. I don't like just having the spiral. The glue's too thick, it doesn't get out. The other thing is when you're doing these, don't put too much epoxy in them. You put too much epoxy, it just makes a mess. You want to have enough just to set them. You really don't want that epoxy oozing out all over the damn place because it becomes a real pain. And you do have to babysit it a little bit. But anyway, where are we at? 381 and a half thousandths. All right, so we're going to go find a drill bit that's somewhere around 381 and a half thousandths, right? No, we're not, guys, because there are no drill bits that size, all right? And then some people will say, well, drill up to the next size and just use a lot of epoxy. So you're going to bed this thing in epoxy. That is not the right way to do it either. At this point, you need to be boring this hole, okay? It's real simple. You need to actually have a boring bar, whatever boring bar you decide you like to use, you need to have a boring bar and bore the hole out to 381 thousandths. All right, that's what I do. I have my setup here. I think you can see, this is actually called an MA Ford. That's the manufacturer of this. I made an adapter myself to go into my tool holder. It works great. This is an MA Ford. I have a few of them. I can have them sharpened if I ever need to. They're all carbide. I'm cutting wood here. It would probably last me 50 years before I ever have to have one of these things sharpened if I use it the right way. So really, it's not a big deal. What you want to do is, you know, if you're not using a DRO and all that kind of stuff, make sure you know how deep you need to be going into here. I know how deep I need to be going already, but just check it. Make sure you know how deep you need to be going. I have basically a 312 thousandths hole here now. I need to get up to 381 thousandths. So I'm going to do a couple different cuts at this, okay? Not going to be a big deal. We may even have to do a little follow-up drill later on, and I'll show you how to do that as well, just to clean things out if it doesn't clean out before we go to tap it. But you can do two things. You can either tap the whole thing now, or you can do what I'm doing right here and bore it out and then tap later, okay? It's entirely up to you. You do it this way, you're just tapping more wood. Not a bad thing. It's okay. You can bore it out later on, or like I said, you can do it here. I'll just do it here this way now. I do a lot of stuff under power. It just gives me a smoother cut. I get to the very end, I'll turn my power off, or my power feed off, and I can do it by hand. Again, time for some air. All right, let's just check ourselves. Like I said, not running a DRO. A lot of you guys aren't doing it either. All right, 356 out, 355, 355 and a half. Pretty good. Something you may not see me doing, I'm actually disengaging the power feed at the very end, and I'm turning, using my hand wheel. You can see me hitting the haunch right there. Well, that's because that's how I drilled that much deeper, so we can tap it out later. Now let's measure this. One should be very, very close. I had myself, based on my dial of 380, well, I'm 380, 380 and a half. That's, you know, I'm getting pretty damn close right now. Okay. A little test fit. No, I mean, it's just now, that's a press fit. That's a little too tight for what you want. We want to take off about 1,000 and a half, 2,000. And here's another rule of thumb, if you'll notice, I'm never repositioning this. If you're cutting something, you should always pull your tool away from it when you bring, you know, everything back. In this case, I'm not. I'm doing an internal. I'm not worried about it if I leave a little scar mark in there, because you're never gonna see it. But if I was doing the outside of something, I would definitely, you know, bring my tooling back, then go back to zero. In this case, I just don't worry about it. It keeps me really accurate the entire time that I'm doing it. So, and think about that when you're doing some of this stuff on the smaller lathes, the Q lathes, I'll say. Just, you know, worry about accuracy a little bit. Okay, we're getting a little closer. Still off just a little bit here. Again, I took my time. You know, I took little cuts at the end. I did take a fairly big cut at the beginning, but I knew where I was at. It's gonna be nice. There's not gonna be anything wrong with that when I get done. I may have it a thou over from where I wanted to be, but I think I'll be just fine. All right, now, people do these different ways. Some people use a chuck and they just, you know, they grab this with a chuck and that's fine, you know, and you can go in. I actually use a spring loaded, and it is spring loaded, and that's exactly what it's for, is a spring loaded tapping tool. When it happens, it just keeps pressure on this the entire way. And we're actually going to wind up tapping this out, doing it that way. And I will show you. Because I use a tap handle. I use a tap handle on this, okay? And I bring this up, and I'm spring loaded, and I bring it right to there. Okay, now, start cranking on it right now. I do not do that, okay? I actually try not to turn this hardly at all. I try to turn the chuck and hold this stationary, because what I find is you still have some movement in this. I don't care what you're doing. These always have a little bit of movement. There's different types of these. There's some tap handles that have a you know, a pin that moves in and out that actually goes into the chuck. Some people use those. I have a couple of them. I just don't like them as much. I found this to be more accurate for me over the years. But what I found keeps my accuracy up more than anything is not turning this, but rather turning the chuck. Okay? I try to hold this in place as much as I can, and I simply turn the chuck back and forth. You can do the same thing on your Q lathes. There's no reason you can't do it on your Q lathes. Okay, to the point to where I'm starting to get out a little further than I want it, so I'm going to tighten this up. Okay, at some point I'm going to want to back this out and clean it out completely, okay, because I'm starting to get, I can feel it starting to bind a little bit. I'm getting chips built up in there, and you can work them to some degree, but I'll tell you, if you ever get too many chips built up in something, you get a tap hung up in it, it makes a mess. It really does. You can turn your workpiece, and the last thing you want to be doing is taking a cue and have it spin on you when you have it in collets and stuff, because it can really make a mess for you. Oops. Sorry, let me get this out of the way. Okay, back here where I can feel it. All right, I'm bottomed out. Now, what I gotta hope is I drilled everything out deep enough. If not, I can always go a little deeper with another bit. But that should get me where I need to be today for this demonstration. Again, I live thread all my stuff, so I don't have to worry about going so deep. The one thing they have not done yet that I've seen anybody do is make a bottom tap in these 3/8 10s. You know, if they would do that, it would be so much nicer if we actually had somebody making bottom taps instead of these taps with these long tapers on them, because you're losing so much to them already. All right, so let's lay this up here. How quickly a little workspace fills with dirt and dust and stuff. Bring our pin in. Yeah, it's gonna work out nice, okay. All right, it's gonna work out really nice. All right, now, so what do we want to do next? If this is our face of our cue, one of our things we want to do, or shaft, or, you know, if you were doing a shaft, not that you're putting a pin in a shaft, but, you know, even a shaft, if you were tapping it, you always want to make sure that you put a chamfer on these, okay? It's very important. I see several videos where people are showing off their cues, and there's not a chamfer here. Okay, and the reason you want that chamfer there is for refacing later on, is one of the biggest reasons to me. If you have to reface that and you're all the way up against this metal, it makes it a real pain. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I'm over here. is chamfer this, because if you're all the way up against this metal here, okay, and you don't have that chamfer when you run your bit in, you got to realize you're working with threads here that are coming around helically, and you're liable to touch that bit a little bit. And it looks better. It's the way it should be. So always make sure you have your chamfering tool in here, and you put a little bit of a chamfer in this as well. So let's do that real quick. Now I will slow this down for chamfering. Okay. Earlier I was at 600 RPM. You know, now I'm going to run 200 RPM. You can even slow it down more. It's a chamfering bit. It's not a drill bit. You know, they're not designed for high speed. Okay, I have a nice little chamfered edge there now. That looks good. Test of time here, guys. See if anything I did works out, or if it was all in vain. All right, now here I am. I'm setting this depth, and I'm just past that thread, right where I want to be. I'm going to try to zoom in as much as possible here. Okay, I know you can't really see the angle. Maybe I'll take the camera off. Just trying not to lose my video here. Sometimes, you know, I hit the wrong button on this camera. But you can see it, okay? I'm past my barrel. I'm into my first thread, right where you want to be, okay? And I'm looking, I think I'm looking pretty good right there. Now, another thing you can do right now, I'm here. Okay, got a little bit of run out on this. Let me see something here. Let me just check something real quick. All right, I am back. Sorry about that. Had a little issue going on. I thought, why did I have a little run out? Well, got to looking at it. I don't know if you can see it or not. See that on the pin right there? It looks like a little CA glue or something got on it. I haven't tried scraping it off. I don't know where my razor blade is. But that's what was giving me a few thousandths run out. And I thought, what was going on? So I had to back up, investigate, put a different pin in, and I'm running fine now. Let me see. I think I am anyway. I haven't really checked it. Let me see. And one of the things I'm going to show you all also you can do on these. So let's see what I have here. I'm going to just bring this over to 0. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Yeah. Let's see how much run out I have. Yeah, I think I can live with that. You know, you're actually seeing that live right now. It's about a thousandths. So now, the other thing that's going to happen is, when I do glue this up, and I will run it in reverse when I do this, okay? Let me set this right now. I will run it in reverse. There we go. Switches being a little difficult. We've had some problems with these switches before. I will always put a center on these. Okay, so I got about a thousandths run out on that. Sorry about that. My air compressor kicking on. I've got about a thousandths run out on that. As you can see, I can live with that. Okay. I mean, I'm not even saying the pin is that. I haven't checked the pin itself, so the pin could have a little run out. But I'm within that thousandths that I talked about earlier. You know, could I try to straighten it up? I probably can when I go to glue it in. You know, if I were to epoxy it in, I could do a little bit more to get it possibly perfect. And I would do that. But for right now, for the demonstration purposes, I think that's pretty good. Now, as you'll see, I brought my tailstock up to it. I checked it, made sure it didn't get any worse, any better, so forth. But what I like to do is I run them in reverse so the threads are, you know, working against each other. It's pushing out on this instead of pushing it in. And I'll actually leave that on there on that center point if it helps out with my accuracy, okay? And that's one of the things that I do, and then I let it glue in. Again, one of the big things to do is do not get excessive with your epoxy. because what you're going to have that epoxy oozing all out here, and it gets all over the threads, and it just makes a damn mess, okay? Babysit it a little bit, because sometimes what happens, I've done this myself, you do it, you get that pressure, it looks good, you walk in, you eat lunch, you come out, and you got a big damn glob of epoxy sitting here on these threads. And you're going to kick yourself for doing it that way. So what you can do, if you babysit it, take a Q-tip with some alcohol or some, alcohol is best because it's not going to hurt the Q at all. If you're doing this to an unfinished Q, you could use acetone. Keep it wiped off, and even take some air pressure and just blow it in here. You'll blow it out. You'll clean it up. Keep cleaning it up, and you'll get that out of there where it looks really nice at the end of the job. Okay. So that's how I do a pin if I'm manually setting it. Now, how do I do a pin if I'm live threading it? It's basically the same way, okay? Except I'm live threading it. I mean, my process is the same, my drilling is the same, my boring is the same. Everything's gonna happen the same way for me up to this point, except like I said, I'm gonna make sure I shim this and so forth. My daughter's not up yet. We'll try the video and we'll see if we can do it. This is gonna make a very long video, but maybe we'll do this as video 1. Okay, let's do it that way. Let's make this the first video because it's already 42 minutes long. And what I don't want to do is rush on a cue. I want to make sure I have full amount of time. There's going to be some processes where I get it already set up. I'll just explain what I did. But this is actually a customer's queue coming up next. And the last thing I want to do is mess up on a customer's queue. Okay, so I'm going to end this one. Like I said, we'll do this part 1. Threading with a tap, and then we'll do the next one, part 2, live threading. All right, thanks for watching. We do appreciate it. If you like things, hit the like button. If you have questions, ask some questions. We're glad to try to help. We're going to keep trying to post videos as we go along. All right, thanks.